Hey guys, what's up? And welcome back to another weekly gaming podcast with Jay Bussin and myself. Today, super salt. All the salts in the world. We're just going to jump in. We're talking about what just happened over the weekend. It was literally this past weekend. Today should be Wednesday. The event started on, was it Friday?
I believe it was Friday, yeah.
Yeah. Specifically, you're probably asking what event? The Pokemon Go event, which should have started...
Specifically, Pokemon Go Fest.
Yes.
Which took place in Chicago, and then also had global ramifications to it. So everyone got to be involved in this dumpster fire.
That's a very appropriate term for this. So if you were hiding under a rock over the weekend, or if you're just not into Pokemon Go and you just haven't heard about it somehow or another, the event started on Friday in Chicago. For whatever stupid reason, they had it to where that is the only place it started on that day, and then no one else really got to start it until the following day. Pretty much.
Well, I mean, it was like a convention thing. It's like PAX East, but for Pokemon Go. So it was like everyone was getting together at this convention thing to celebrate the 1-year launch. But then for those that couldn't make it to the event because it was in Chicago, they had other events going on Saturday as well. So I mean, like, I get the whole exclusivity of the thing. Otherwise, why bother going? You know,
half and half. It's in play. It's so unprecedented because it is a mobile game. So there's like a lot of like, how really?
Yeah, but it's the mobile game. It's literally the biggest mobile game that's ever been released.
Yeah, but for how much longer? That's
okay. All right. I'm gonna play devil's advocate on this one, so I'll let you go.
I mean, there's gonna be a lot of give and take on this, and a lot of it's just salt of it just not going the way we wanted it to. Obviously, they're still successful. Otherwise, it wouldn't still be going. So it's more of just, wanting to unleash the salt from within.
All right, well, you go ahead and get it out of your system, and I'll pat you on the shoulder when you're done.
Yeah, sure. So I don't even know really where to start on this. But for the basics, I guess we can start with the first issue at hand, which has been the issue since this game came out. It seems to never be fixed, and it's become a problem now because it's been more than a year, so you don't really get a pass anymore by this point. It's like we wanted to give you a little bit of leeway because this ended up being way bigger than they ever expected it to be. So, hey, you get a pass your first couple months in. But, I mean, guys, it's been a whole year. You had your first ever legendary event in a specific city where people from across the world traveled to get there, and you had server problems all day long.
All right, let me stop you right there and go ahead and throw down the facts of the situation. Fact, the servers were garbage when the game first came out. Mm-hmm. In their defense, the game was in beta when it officially released.
Correct.
All right, we got version 0.7 when it was released. So, yes, a beta game is going to have problems. Now, Niantic definitely bit off more than they could chew with this game. They didn't predict that it would be as big or as crazy as it was, and they weren't able to keep up with the servers on it. And I understand that, because who would have guessed that the game would have become the global phenomenon that it did? And like you said, it's been a year plus. But generally, since the first month of the game, the servers have been fine.
I don't know about up there in Boston, but we disagree down here.
I mean, I have, I help manage the Twitter page for the Pokemon Go community in my city. And I have server data based on when the servers are up and down. And they were up and down and up and down and up and down like crazy for the first month. But then basically for the rest of the year, up until quite recently, it's been up except when it was down for scheduled maintenance.
Yeah, see, we have problems all the time. Now, granted, when I say server problems, I'm being very vague because the whole game is based on a server. So this could be a multitude of things. Like our biggest problem here is just consistent errors over and over and over and over and over again. And I'm not just talking about me. I'm talking about we have Pokemon Go group me's and Facebook pages and all this stuff down here to where kind of all interact with each other, and it's just widespread and happens all the freaking time. Now, it might just be that, the sad point of is what it is that we're in the more rural areas, so we get the less attention when problems happen. I don't know, but
Well,
it is.
I mean, that's not how the game works. Like, that's not how phone mobile games work on a server. It's not like because you live in a rural area, you get less connection to the server. If anything, that's on your cell phone carrier. Yeah. That's not on them.
I would hope not, but given the fact that you're saying that y'all haven't had problems and we have never ceased to stop having problems down here, it just causes questions.
Yeah, I'd be willing to chalk that one up to some other factor other than Niantic. I'm going to give them a pass on that one.
I do not, but we'll just move on. But
all right, we'll agree to disagree on that one.
That's because I worked at a phone company, so I know what would be a phone problem, and this would not be it.
Well, I'm never wrong, so let's go.
All right. That was a big issue, and Jay, did you actually watch any of the event, like whether live or in post?
No, I was having a life.
Okay, well, we actually watched it. I was actually with my family in Birmingham for the whole weekend, and all of us together were kind of watching it live and actually participating in events. It was a fun time overall, but there was a multitude of problems, and literally this is what happened. So whoever is in charge of Niantic's event needs to be fired. All of them. Like, I have never seen an event so poor in my life.
In what way?
In every way possible.
Okay, can you start giving me some specifics?
I'm getting there.
Okay.
Let me warm up. So
oh god.
So
let me get a helmet on.
So this is how the event started for anyone who missed it. I would kind of give it a lowdown for Jay. So very nice.
Thank you.
So it started at 11 a.m. is where the live stream of the event started. And it had a person on stage, kind of like your typical pep person getting people ready, and then introduced the CEO of Niantic. And the second that they did that, all you heard was booing. That was it.
Wow.
Nothing but booing.
Now, the servers were still up at this time.
No.
At 11 o'clock Central?
This is what we had. I just assumed they were booing because Niantic's had so many problems, but it turned out because the second he got up there, he had to start apologizing for the servers already being down. And
that's interesting.
To quote unquote, just trust us, we'll take care of it. And everybody was started.
Oh, okay. All right. So
go ahead.
What I think was going on is the people in Chicago kind of had like a separate pass for the game. They had to scan a QR code, and that unlocked and activated a bunch of stuff. And I'm willing to bet that's what they were having problems with. Because on Saturday at that date and time, I was actually in Boston with my wife, and we were participating in the events that were going on at the time, where you had to catch as many Pokemon as you could within that half-hour window to unlock the reward tiers. And we did not have a problem with it. And we played all the way up past about 2:30 Eastern, at which point we were on a boat and we were so far off the coast that we didn't have cell service anymore. And that stayed that way until about 6 or 7 p.m. So during that time, I don't know what happened with the servers, but I was connected to the game and playing the game nonstop all day because we were in Boston where Pokemon is huge. So
right. Well, here's actually, it was nationwide, if not worldwide.
Yeah, no, I know it was nation worldwide at a later time.
No. I mean at that point in time. And the way it worked is it was just sporadic. Because you could go and read articles or look at pages for all the place of servers just randomly being down, but then coming back in and then coming back out and then coming back in.
That's really interesting because I had no issues.
Well, any game with server, it all boils down to where your ping is coming from on that initial connection. And that's kind of what I was talking about earlier, is like maybe whatever ping the area I'm getting from is just getting the shaft. I don't know. But anyways, so that was already a terrible start. I'm like, okay, you got booed when you come on stage. Your servers are already down before the events even started. Yeah, you can't really expect anything less. Because, I mean, gosh, guys, you've had a year. You've been planning this event for a long time. And to have that out the gate, that's not a good sign. Then on top of that, so they start the event, and the live stream kicks into this little visual bar of the types of Pokemon that they were going to be catching, and it was split into 3 awards: the bronze, silver, and gold medal. And you had 3 time slots. You had 11 to 11:30, and I think 1 to 1:30, and maybe like 3 to 3:30 or something like that. Because these 30-minute slots with some breaks in between, which didn't happen, by the way. They ended up just kind of tanking the whole thing.
They basically scrapped the whole thing and just gave everyone the gold reward because you couldn't participate.
Well, because of how many problems they ended up having.
Yeah.
So it started, and literally the second that it started, they're like, all right, go catch the Pokemon, yay. And then the screen, which the live stream had the CEO on it, shifts to, the progress bar, which, I mean, it's fine. That's kind of what you expect on a stream. And the background was already a bad sign. So it shifts to that image, and then the background is just a mic that was in the stadium turned on, picking up the people, not a mic pointed at somebody, not a audio signal pulling music into it. You were hearing the PA playing music through a mic that was on stage somewhere.
Stellar.
And that was it. So that's bad thing number 1. I don't know whose idea that was, but okay, that's already a terrible start. That played the entire time, by the way. That was the only audio of the live stream for however many hours that happened. Visually, the only thing they showed was that progress bar or a picture of the Pokemon Go Fest, and that was it. So every now and then they try to do a stationary video of people walking around, but it wasn't interacting or anything. It was just a still shot.
Right. Well, that's what confused me, because while I was playing the game, and this I also thought was really, really stupid. I was in the middle of actually catching a Pokemon, and Pokemon Go closed, and Twitch opened on its own to their Twitch page. Wow. There was no pop up hey, do you want to go check out our Twitch channel and watch Pokemon Go Fest live? It just suddenly popped up, and I was like, excuse you, I was doing something.
Which is not surprising though, really.
No, and it doesn't surprise me at all that their Twitch stream was such a dumpster fire, because they probably had their hands full with 1,000 other things.
Yeah, but that is so not excusable at this point.
No, it's not. But I'm it doesn't surprise me.
Oh, it didn't. Yeah, I definitely agree with I had no real hopes for this. It was they have let me down so many times. I don't know why I really expect anything less. But it's still
I don't know why they streamed it either. I was like, who cares? It's I don't want to watch a bunch of people walking around in a park, because also at that time the windows were open worldwide too. So
oh, yeah.
I'm supposed to be out there catching Pokemon. I don't want to sit here and watch people walk around a park on their cell phones. I'm going to be out doing what you're telling me to do.
Absolutely. And I totally agree with that. But if you're going to do it, don't let it be absolute garbage. Crap.
No, it sounds, I haven't seen this, so I can't say anything, but it sounds to me like just a complete lack of
me and you could do a better live event than they did.
Well, I'm the best streamer on twitch.tv, but there's, there's all of these things that they just didn't consider. It just seemed, this whole thing kind of seemed like it was thrown together, and Niantic seems to have a bad, well, I know, but I don't want to be talking forever. We've already been going for 15 minutes or 13 minutes, but it just seems to me like this whole thing was thrown together, not thought out well, and that's just kind of been the whole story of Pokemon Go in general. With all the problems in the beginning of it, and now this and everything, and anyway, keep going.
It's almost
get it all out of your system.
It's almost like whoever is in charge of doing events and planning things just either has not done them before or is not consulting other people in similar venue. I don't know. Because the event gets worse, by the way, Jay. This is just the start. So as soon as it does start, I already told you, hey, he got booed. Hey, you had a mic somewhere on stage picking up.
Thanks for the recap of everything we've already talked about.
Oh yeah, it's just a snowball, man. It's just gonna keep getting bigger. Then maybe not even a minute or 2 minutes into it, the progress bar that they were supposedly showing for how they, you had each type, and once they called enough of certain type, it was supposed to accumulate.
Unlock a certain reward.
Yeah, unlock an award. go to the metal and such. Suddenly, the fire and water types were all the way full. Just bam, just automatically. And, you know, us in the room, my family were kind of just looking like, that can't be right. Like, I mean, I don't know exactly how they're doing this event, but surely they didn't make the goals so low to where they get it within minutes. So that was kind of funny. So it stays that for maybe about 30 seconds, and suddenly the image shifts just to a still image of a Pokemon Go Fest wallpaper or whatever the heck. I was like, okay, so obviously they're fixing something. And then several minutes, I don't even know, probably more than 10 to 15 minutes later, of nothing but staring at that wallpaper and hearing microphone chatter / song that sounds like it's 300 yards away in the distance. Finally, it shifts back to that progress bar, and it's back to what you would expect it to be, which is these little minute bars. So like, okay, one of two things just happened. Either A, everything they do just seems to have issues and it was broken and they had to fix it, or B, the entire time they didn't know what they wanted the progress bar to be, so they kind of just let it be whatever, to where they have these little integers that they can change at will, so there was never actually a set goal. And that second one would sound like a conspiracy theory, right?
It doesn't sound like a conspiracy theory, it just doesn't sound realistic.
Sadly, it was. Because later, I don't know who took the image. I don't know if it was someone at the event or what it was. Someone took a picture of a computer at the event that had an actual screen of the goal bar, like the program they were using for the goals, and it was just little blanks to where they could at any time change the integers of the goals and then push enter and it would just change.
Fun stuff.
So they literally didn't have it. Okay, I'm not even gonna hit on that one. So that's bad. That's terrible. And then the servers go down completely again, and then that's kind of when all chaos starts. And they had pictures coming in on like all kinds of media of the line getting out of the event was longer than the line to get in the event. Which I don't even know how you take something that hard. Probably
it's got to be a moral blow to the team.
Oh yeah, got to. And you know, I can't really blame anybody, because on top of all that, catch this, Jay. They did not have a single, I repeat, a single food or snack vendor in the entire festival. None. Didn't do it.
I mean, that could be a zoning thing as on Chicago's part.
It could be, but
it could be because they were in a public park, and I know that there are public parks where they don't sell foods or whatever because that generates trash.
Correct.
And then, you know, all that stuff. So that might not be on them. I don't know. I'm not making that claim. I'm just trying to defend them as best I can so that it's not a 2-person roast session on Niantic here.
Oh, I mean, I don't worry. I'll give them some praise at the end of my outlashing, so you don't have to worry about that. I'm just getting it out of my system. So that's and I understand the zoning thing because I know that is a thing with a lot of parks, but that for something like this, especially at the day they chose to do it, where it was actually a pretty hot day, that's not great. Especially when you had, and like, since you were in a park, the nearest place was not really very close, and then they have to travel out, and I don't even know if they'd be allowed to come back in. I didn't look into anything like that, if it was going to be.
They would be allowed to. They had bracelets.
I would hope so, but that would have been really bad if they had not.
That I know for a fact.
Okay. But case in point, you know, all that started happening, and then it was just downfall after downfall, and like we already said, it got so bad to where they scrapped the entire, you know, building block thing to where you kind of just earn. They're like, okay, screw it, just catch stuff, do whatever. And then by that point, you know, so many people had left, the where it was nowhere near what it started. And it's really bad when before the event is even over, like not even really to the halfway mark, that your company issues a statement that everyone who went to the event will be receiving a refund, B, $100 worth of Pokemon coins, and C, if your travel expense were X amount of dollars or higher, they would reimburse your travel expenses.
Are you sure on that last one? I didn't read that anywhere.
100%.
I read their official statement and I didn't see that.
100% positive from multiple sources.
Okay, all right. I'll take your word for it.
Because the first time I heard that, I was like, okay, I could see the refund of the ticket, but the $100 Pokemon, like that just sounds ridiculous. And then it popped up on another source and another source and another source. Like, well, crap. Okay. So it was bad enough to where your event's not even at the halfway mark, and you're having to dish out more money than what it probably costs to do the event in and of itself.
Yeah, no, this event was totally a wash for them. They lost
absolutely.
money on this.
Absolutely. And that's not a good sign for your first event. Like, I hope and pray that their second one, they learn from their mistakes and actually move forward, as opposed to just stagnating and just continuing to fail in their constant mistakes they seem to making over and over. But time will tell there. And I can't help but think that they won't have quite the turnout the second time. I might be wrong there. And I kind of hope I am, because I do hope the game keeps succeeding.
Yeah. I mean, there's events going on in Europe. There's actually one going on as we speak. That's an unofficial one. It's not run by Niantic. It's more or less just a fan run one. And it's still having major success, rather. And then there's another one that I think is an official Niantic one happening later. So we'll have to keep our eye on that. Just to go back to another point we made earlier about the whole refund thing. I just pulled up their official press statement. And I don't see anything on a travel refund. I just don't want to spread misinformation.
It was a very high number. Like, it was not something.
I'm looking at the statement they released, and there's nothing in here about a travel reimbursement.
Interesting. I'm not sure, because like all of that was the day that it happened.
Right, so and that's what I'm looking at. The statement they released Saturday night or Sunday morning or whenever it was. That says, all registered attendees will soon receive an email with instructions on how to receive a full refund for the cost of the ticket. All registered attendees will receive $100 in Poké Coins, Pokemon Go, et cetera, all the way down. But it says nothing about travel expense.
The travel one happened later. I do remember that. I'll have to go back and look at it. So for now, if we want to, we can just count the 2 as canon, and you can ignore the 3rd if you want to. But I do know we saw it across multiple, and like enough to where, like, if this is false, it's very well done false. Because it was happening in so many different places, and it was all saying the exact same freaking thing.
Right.
So we'll move on to that. Okay, so now on to probably the biggest problem I had out of all of this, and this has probably been my biggest problem with Niantic by and large, is that it is quite frankly very obvious that they are more concerned about making money off of you than they are giving the players a good time or what they want. Now, hear me out before you say anything back to that. I understand full well that every game you ever play, their number one goal must be to make money. If it's not, they're idiots. I'll just say that. I'll just say that point blank. Because if you can't do that, then you're not going to be able to keep it going. That needs to be your first goal. I understand that. But on top of that, you also need to make your fans happy or your players happy, because if you do that, that makes the first thing happen anyways. So it's kind of like a give and return there, to where those two things help them meet in the middle, to where they actually accomplish each other in a way. And when you have this to where it's becoming a freemium per se, as we've talked before, it's not really, because this game kind of can't be, but we're the only...
No, this is a freemium game. I would consider this freemium.
Because like it's more of, I don't know, we might talk about that at a later date. Like it just seems kind of in its own category, but I guess we could consider it that. But anyway, so when the only way to possibly really have a chance in this legendary event, like when I say a chance, a good chance to catch something, is to spend money, that's when it's a problem.
What do you mean by that?
And that's exactly what I'm about to say. So the event so far, as much as we know, because they're not really giving us jack squat of details as far as what's going to happen after today at 5 p.m. as far as the legendary spawn rate goes. Mm-hmm. All we know is that the doubles of all the bonuses and the XP and the Stardust and all that's going to end at 5 p.m. Pacific time.
Yep.
That's about all we know. Like, we don't know if legendaries are going to stop temporarily at that time, or if they're just going to decrease in spawn rate, or kind of what's going to happen there. So for right now, we're just going to have to assume that it's definitely going to at least bare minimum decrease, right? That they wouldn't be as prevalent as they are right now. Is that at least fair to say?
Potentially. I'm actually digging through their Twitter right now to see if they've released a statement lately.
Right.
On
Which,
that.
if you find something, let me know.
I will do that.
But so just assuming right now that, this was the weekend that you had the highest chance, because like it's a legendary, so it only makes sense for it not to be that prevalent outside of an event. Like it might still happen, it'll just be more rare. At least that makes sense in my head. So for
as far as like a natural,
yes,
how you would think things would, I would agree with that.
Yeah, like I mean that's the only thing that makes sense. It would be kind of dumb to just have a legendary popping up all the freaking time like they are right now. So for everybody else outside of Chicago, if I'm not mistaken, I think some cities got it really late Friday night, but the vast majority of us didn't get it till early Saturday morning.
Yeah, I didn't see any until Saturday.
Right. There were rumors of some, I don't know.
Oh no, Sunday, because this whole event of the legendary Pokemon appearing took place Saturday, because that's when I was in Boston.
That's right. It was Saturday.
So I didn't see anything until Sunday at about 11.
Right. Whichever day the event was, most people didn't get anything till the next day. There were rumors that some cities got it that night, but it might have just been people getting clickbait. I don't know. Anyways, most people didn't get a start till Sunday. So if that is the case, that means most people only had Sunday and Monday to try to catch legendaries. And that is a problem for a multitude of freaking reasons. Like, this is going to take a minute. So problem number one is that a Sunday and Monday are terrible days for people to do that. Maybe Sunday more arguably, but definitely not Monday. Like, my gosh, that's a terrible day for like, okay, you have all day to go do this. Well, you're either going to have to take off or you're just not going to get anything done. One or the other. Two, if you know how raids work, which I know Jay does because he plays the game, but if you're for whatever reason not familiar with Pokemon Go, you have to have a raid pass to get in. The only way to get these is one of two ways. Either you go to where a raid is and they will give you one free one per day. That's how it works. And you can only get a free one if you don't already have a previous free one in your inventory, if that makes sense. So if you've already gotten a free one and you just happen to not use it that day, you can't get another one until you first use that one that's in your inventory.
Right, because you can only hold one at a time.
Correct. The exception to this is that they have them in the Pokemon store to where you can buy one at any point in time. Now, you can do this with your coins if you manage to save up enough, but it costs 100 coins to get, and they've limited to where you can only get 50 coins a day for every gym you have. So even if, let's just assume that you didn't have enough coins from the get-go to get it, the max potential you had of raids to do is somewhere between 5 to 10, depending on what kind of coin rate you had.
And that's why it's a freemium game.
Exactly. And that is my biggest problem with this, that you had a legendary event to where they only get 5 or 10, really for most people, probably closer to 4 or 5 would be probably an average on your higher end there. And then anyone who spend money can go, infinite as high as they want. But you do that, that's already bad enough as it is to where they only really get 4 or 5 tries at it. And then on top of that, they said that the freaking catch rate for these things is at like 5%.
Yeah, it's rough.
So you've dropped that even lower, and I don't want to argue that too much because it is a legendary. It doesn't need to be easy to catch. I get that, but geez, like when you're compounding a 5% chance with a thing that you can only do maybe 2 times a day for the master, like what are you doing?
Okay, here's my perspective on that. All right, I agree with you on a lot of things, and I disagree with you on a lot of things. The whole raid pass thing. Yeah, it kind of sucks that you can only get one a day and, max 2 because you can use one and then get another one the next, that day that you got, if you got another one the day before. And that does suck.
Which let me interrupt you just for a second.
Yep.
Just to counter that point. I have no problems with it before the legendary event.
Right. Well, I mean,
outside of that, it
but
made
we're
sense.
talking about this event this past weekend.
Correct.
So, and so that does kind of suck. But, you know, again, at the end of the day, like you said, it's about the whole money aspect of it. And that's why I consider this a freemium game, because yes, it's 100 coins. Now, without even trying, I have almost 400 coins just because I'm constantly in gyms. Now, things are a little different for me here because I'm in a city.
Yep.
You're in a much more rural area. So there is that. I think Niantic needs to give a little more love to the rural areas, but that is what it is. The legendary Pokemon's catch rate being 5% is definitely noticeable. I was part of a raid battle yesterday with 20 people. Like, there was a group of 20 of us. There was a Lugia at a park, and we went and there was a ton of people. There were like 60 or 80 people there. And so we got a group of 20 together and we took it down. And it was a beast to take down, but we took it down. And I was given, and here's my big gripe with it, is the Premier Balls. I feel like you don't get enough of them, and I feel like it's up to random happenstance. I happened to get an extra 3 because I happened to be Team Valor, because it was at a Team Valor gym, or there were more Team Valor players. I don't remember what it was. But I got none for damage output because...
You got put out and had to come back in.
Yeah, I got put out and had to go back in. And, like... That's kind of dumb to me because I still did a ton of damage to the stupid thing. I did arguably a 20th of its damage.
Mm-hmm.
But because...
how strong they are, like that's just a I agree with you. That's just a stupid.
Yeah, so like that's stupid. So like, okay, so I was given 10 balls to catch this thing. And it was a feisty Pokemon for sure. It was attacking and bouncing all over the place. And you have your berries to help calm it down and berries to help make it easier to catch or whatever. But at the end of the day, 5% is 5%. I didn't get it. And so I was a little tilted or salty or whatever word you want to use about that. But then out of everyone we were with, out of the 20 people, only 3 people did. And so 17 out of 20 people went home empty-handed. And so that's kind of like, oh, that kind of sucks. But then if you just stop and think about it, like I put myself in my 9-year-old shoes. All right. When I was 9, I'm in my hand right now is my copy of Pokemon Red. And I got Pokemon Red when I was 8. So I guess 8-year-old shoes. And I remember the legendaries, and I remember how excited I was to find them, like, randomly, because, like, the internet wasn't really a big thing back in 1997, 1998. It wasn't as accessible as it is today, so, like, I was just walking through, I think the first one I found was Zapdos in the power plant. I was just walking through this, I was just exploring the world. I found this little article of water over by Cerulean City I had never surfed on, because you didn't get surf until much later. And I found this building. I'm like, cool, I'm going to explore this building. And I get to the end of it, and I see this bird, and I battle it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is Zapdos. This is a big deal. And I just remember, like, how hard it was, and how, like, big a deal, and how stressful it was battling this thing, because I didn't save beforehand, because I didn't know what it was. I just saw this bird, and I was like, what is this thing? And all that stuff. And so now put yourself in, 2017 shoes, or whatever year you're listening to this 20 years later. And catching legendary Pokemon are hard. They're popping up like crazy, but catching them is still hard. And I feel like it should be that way. If everyone has a legendary Pokemon, they're not legendary. Right. You know what I'm saying?
And I absolutely agree on that point individually. My problem is the concept they've done with all of it compounded together.
Yeah.
The 5%, the fact of how raids work, the fact of, you could really only do 2 a day freely for most. I say the average around here, like 400 coins, you don't see those around here at all. Not unless you're spending money, because there's not a lot of, there are gyms, but not ones you can walk to. Or you're going to have to go drive way out of your way just to get to it.
Right.
Around here. Like if you're in a big city, it's way, way different. And I've just over the past couple of months, I've had several vacations where I can definitely definitely agree with what Jay's saying. Like if you're in a big city, it's way easier than where if you're stuck in a rural area.
Right.
Way, way easier. And that's something Niantic definitely needs to take a look at. But that's kind of going to be, all things leading up to, that's going to be kind of like the question of the day at the end of it is kind of what is going to be the right thing to do? Because I agree with Jay to an extent, because I do understand that it's a legendary event. It doesn't need to be a freebie. It doesn't need to be, here you go, here's a legendary. No, that would be a waste of time and kind of fruitless. I mean, you wouldn't really feel good at the end of the day because you didn't accomplish anything because it was handed to you.
Which was actually one of the refunds that they gave to the people in Chicago. If you were at Pokemon Go Fest, they gave you a free Lugia and Articuno in your box. And honestly, like when I heard about that, my wife brought up the point, she was like, I'd be angry. Like, I didn't work for this.
Them, with the amount of people that traveled from out of country, that I don't really fault.
Like, I understand why they did it, and I'm not, like, opposed to it, but I'd be like, I'd rather, like work for it, you know? And especially with how common they kind of are right now, it's like, it's totally feasible just to go out and catch your own.
Right. Now, granted, the issue, which is, like I said, all of it compounding, the fact that they're common is irrelevant if you can only attempt it twice a day. And in the instance of what we were thinking, Sunday and Monday, and then from then, they're probably not going to be very common anymore. So you really only had 2 days to try them consistently. And that's not, as we discussed with the 5% thing, that's no guarantee whatsoever that you're going to catch one. If anything, it's a good guarantee that you're not.
Well, while you were doing your rant, and I was listening, and all that jazz, mostly anyway, I was poking around the inner sphere a little bit here. And there's no mention at all of the spawn rates changing after, well, for what is us, 15 minutes from now. And the only thing that they do mention is that Moltres and Zapdos will soon be added to the mix. The Articuno was only selected because Team Mystic won some competition at Pokemon Go Fest.
And I do hope that it stays like it is right now for at least a week or something, because that would help it balance out a lot. It really
I don't think it's going to be... Like, they haven't mentioned it going down at all, but they were very upfront about everything else. Like, all these, they said these bonuses are going to end at 7 o'clock on this date or whatever. And then all these other things like the Ash Ketchum Pikachu, that's only available from this date to this date, and all that other stuff. And they've not mentioned anything about spawn rates of legendaries. And with Niantic, a company that's been, quite frankly, crystal clear with everything they've been doing since launch. I mean, they admit their own faults when they screw up. And anytime there's an event or anything like that, they have start times and end times and all that stuff. So in my book, until we hear anything about the spawn rate change, I'm going to assume they're not gonna. And I mean, quite frankly, by the time this podcast comes out, we'll know the answer to that.
Right.
But,
and like I said, I hope that is the case, because that will at least help it balance out a little bit. Because at this point, and I can't really speak for Jay's community because he's in a much bigger city, but around here you have a ton of people who haven't even had a chance to really even attempt to go catch a whole lot of them, because around here Sunday's a pretty busy day because we're in the Bible Belt, so a lot of people are with church or with family and doing stuff like that.
You're talking to a pastor, dude.
Well, I understand, but difference in culture and whatnot, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Just talking about the city as a whole, and then on top of that, then you have Monday, which I would have to assume that in most places, Mondays are pretty similar. That's like the worst day of the week for most people.
Well, you also have to remember that a lot of the people playing these games are like kids. Now, when I was at the park yesterday and we were battling the Lugia or whatever, there was a huge range, and a lot of them were college age. I would say most people were like college and career age, older teens, younger 20s or whatever, but there were people that they looked in their 40s or 50s that were playing the game and were really into it. And there were also people that were like 13.
I think their biggest demographic right now is early to mid college age, because that would be the biggest nostalgic original Pokemon players.
Yeah, we're the people who grew up with this.
Right. That's what I think. And it may also be decreasing because a lot of them are not happy with the way it's been done via Niantic and a lot of different things. But that's a whole nother point for a whole nother time. But
on that point, I would disagree. Because there is data to back that up, too. Because even though Saturday was such a cluster truck of a nightmare, Sunday, people were out like crazy. Again, I live in a city, and I'm driving by parks, and there were just crowds of people gathering and battling this thing. And then there's this thing in Europe that's going on as we speak, which is seeing a huge turnout. So like this game, it's not shrinking, but Niantic, just my closing statement here, Niantic, you have to you got to get your crap together. All right. You are not a good enough company to be doing a game on this scale. You need help.
Exactly. And I agree with Jay 100%. And what I would add to that is the only thing, and I repeat, in my opinion, the only thing keeping them afloat is that they chose Pokemon.
Yes.
That is it. The only
100%.
thing keeping this going is that it is Pokemon. Like if it were anything else, it would have crashed and burned by this point.
I have to wonder how the Pokemon company feels about this. You know, they're a Japanese company, and they have like completely different, you know, standards and a way of doing things or whatever. And because they're a part of Nintendo, who is just like so well known for not releasing a game until it's perfect, this has to be like a nightmare scenario for them.
I think it's the opposite. I think they're actually laughing their heads off. Like, our game is so good, they're keeping these morons afloat.
Okay, that's certainly another way of looking at it too. I'll give you that one. Anyway, we've been going for like 40 minutes. We need to wrap up. Go ahead and do your 10-minute outro.
Probably. But I mean, all that to say, I mean, like I said, it's still a great thing because it is Pokemon, so it matters to a lot of us. And a lot of the things they've kept, even though there are plenty of differences, a lot of it there's not. There's the things you know and love, and you're getting to do it on your phone. So that is a huge thing, and it's still a great thing. And I hope that they really turn it around because they could make it so much better than it is. They really could if they would just kind of like Jay said, just get their crap together on a few things, and they really wouldn't have to be much. I mean, because Pokemon itself will help the thing move along in a positive way. But the question of the day, and it's kind of hard to kind of really put it, but what to you is what you how do I phrase this? How do you want this game to be in and of itself? And I don't mean like what would you change about everything. I mean, if you do have problems with it, what's going to make it better for you? And I don't want you to say that from a perspective of only I want this and this will serve me. Do your best to think of as a whole kind of how we've been trying to discuss this. Like, what are the things that you think would help fix this game for everybody kind of thing?
I think Niantic has to like capitalize on the one big thing that's keeping this together, and that's the community. And they have to have other ways of interacting with the players you meet. You know, like I think of like Street Pass with the 3DS. You know, when you walk by someone else who has Street Pass, you get stuff. And so like maybe if you walk by another player, you get some Stardust or something. I don't know. Right. And like PvP needs to happen. Trading needs to happen. Other ways that you can interact with other players. That's what's going to keep this game fresh and interesting and alive.
Basic concepts of original Pokemon, like trading, needs to happen.
Like all things that, quite frankly, when, you know, 2 years ago when this game was announced or whatever it was, things that were advertised.
Yep.
You know?
That's a whole nother problem I have with them is that they advertise stuff way the frick ahead of time and then just took forever to get to it. But
yeah. No, their timetable is definitely a little behind what I thought it would be. But anyway.
Very much
so. That's our opinions. We can't wait to hear yours in the comments. Popular or unpopular though they may be, we always love reading over them. And just thank you guys for listening, tuning in to this very long, mostly negative rant.
It's very long, jibber jabber. Apologize if it was negative. Mostly just kind of getting our feelings out there because it was, in most people's eyes, a negative event. But genuinely hoping that the next one is better. And I'm still looking forward to the next one because I love Pokemon. I always will. So I am looking forward to the next one. Hope you are too. Let us know what you think about it in the comments. And as always, we will talk to you or talk at you next time.